Alright, welcome to Module 2. If you've just finished Module 1, this session will talk about the power of manner, how you speak. Before we start, I'd like you guys to do a quick exercise, and we're going to call this as a jam session. Jam stands for just a minute. What I'll be doing is I'll be challenging you to talk about one topic for 1 minute. And then we're going to assess how you speak based on what we're going to be learning in the next few slides. So are you ready? Now, after I've spoken and you're about to deliver your speech, you have to pause the video, and right after you finish your sentence or your speech, you click the play button again. Ready? Your topic is this. If you had $1 million to spend for a day, what would you do about it? All right, so how did that speech go? The reason why I gave you that exercise is because before we proceed to the session about your tone, your pitch, or your timbre, I'd like you guys to be more reflective of your own voice. There are two key things here. The reason why I gave you that topic is because it's such a very happy topic to talk about. When you talk about money and talking about how do you spend it for a day, you usually let go of your inhibitions and fears. You become very confident. The key to becoming a great public speaker, therefore, is to start creating conversations about the topics that you're most comfortable about. And in order for you to gain that confidence, you therefore have to choose your battles and you have to choose your topics. Number 2, do you also notice that you've been smiling a lot when you were talking about that? That's because when we daydream, we talk about our ambitions, we talk about happy things, we let go of those fears, we let go of bad memories, and it makes ourselves feel that whoever we're talking to, we're sharing our lives, we're sharing some pieces of vulnerability that makes us more reflective or relatable to other people. All right, so for this session, when it comes to speaking about your manner, we'll talk about 3 things. The first one is pitch, the second one is timbre, and the third one is prosody. These are 3 elements that form how you speak and how people listen to you. Remember, by evolution, we always prefer listening to people whose voices are very relatable to all of us. Just like when you go to a grocery, when you buy something, you don't know what the contents are, and so you judge it first based on how the packaging looks like. The same thing also happens for speech. It's not just about how you look, it's also about how you sound. The first one is pitch. Now, in the case of pitch, we're referring to the highness or to the lowness of your voice. For example, this is low modulated voice, and this is high pitched voice. Now, science tells us that we always gravitate towards speakers and people who have a low modulated voice. Why? Because by evolution, we always associate deep voices into voices that have authority, are commanding, and likely have leadership skills. Because that deep voice protects us from any harm, or at least that's how we associate it. We also associate high-pitched voice as being weak, vulnerable, and patronizing. This is the reason why when you watch movies and let's say the character is someone who's likely vulnerable or weak, you do not associate your deep modulated voice to that character either. Now, when you talk about business transactions, I want you to be able to practice a lower modulated voice. And here's a tip. Have you ever noticed that when you listen to politicians or radio announcers or TV anchors and presenters, they have a low modulated voice? And this is something that we all want to listen to, and we all gravitate towards wanting to listen more. How do you get that modulated voice? Well, 2 things. It's either you get a coach voice, or number 2, because that might not be accessible for everyone, you can keep on practicing on a daily basis. What I usually do is that I lie down on bed and I tilt my head like this, and immediately your diaphragm gets into an enclosure and your voice becomes deeper like this. Practice that for a lot of time, daily, weekly, or even monthly, up to a point wherein you get the ideal pitch that you think is more commanding and more influencing. Of course, don't only decide on your own. You can also ask advice and tips from your friends and from mentors because there's a difference between wanting to sound naturally versus acting it out artificially, and you look like you're simply acting out your voices as well. Finally, when it comes to pitch, please remember that the context is also important. For example, when I go to a hotel and I'm trying to get the attention of the concierge person, or I'm calling the hotline of an airline and I'm complaining about something about, let's say, my delays in my flight, I usually use a modulated voice to get that command. But when I'm talking to my parents, I don't need to do that either. And that's the reason why your voice can still be high-pitched in your natural tone. Do you guys notice that when you go to restaurants, waiters don't call you out and say, "Hi, ma'am, sir, what do you want to eat?" Because it scares you away. So the context is different as well, and they speak in their rather normal talking voice. That's pitch. The second one is timbre. Timbre refers to how rich, smooth your voice is. And this is because we always want to listen to someone wherein there's clarity behind the words and the sounds. Contrast this to a coarse, sore throat kind of voice. Now, remember the time when you went to that concert and you've been shouting out all night, and come the next morning, you just lost your voice? That's the kind of coarse voice I'm talking about. And you might want to avoid that because even if it sounds like it's a bedroom voice, it's best left in bed. When you go to the boardroom and you want to project a really confident you, it's always best to have a good amount of timbre. In this case, rich, smooth, easy on the ears, and people don't need to want to keep on repeating what you've been saying. Finally, number 3, I'm going to talk about prosody. Prosody refers to the up and down of your voice versus your monotonic, robotic voice like this. Now, when you're speaking, you have to be very conscious. Do you speak as if you don't have any variety? Or do you speak because it comes from the heart? There's sincerity and there's authenticity. And in this case, prosody that has an up and down in your tone is something that people would want to listen more. We usually have a more varied tone when we speak impromptu. However, if you speak when you have a prepared speech or you're memorizing a speech, you likely have a very monotonous tone. So the key therefore to that is finding ways on how to speak impromptu as much as you can. That wraps up Module 2. I'll see you guys with body language, which is going to be our Module 3.